Lecture for this module. This is the agility versus inertia case study. Let's see. Oh, what do you know? It just worked. Very unusual. Anyway, okay, so what we want to, I'm hoping everybody read this, and because it's going to be important to the discussion board. There were a couple of examples. So this case studies are written for a teaching capacity. So whenever you read a case study, unless it's in the middle of like a dissertation, generally speaking, there's a lot of leeway that the author's given to write it. So there were things in this case study that didn't happen exactly the way it was. There were more people involved than the way it's depicted, but the complexity of writing it exactly as it happened was impossible. So this case study is about basically a struggle between the business units and the IT organization. The business units are they're very concerned about the future of the Midwest automotive business, and they are behind in technology, and a cloud-based software as a service company comes along and shows them an alternative to how to kind of get these things off the ground. There was, a lot of the concern had to do with the idea of autonomous vehicles being introduced, and certainly this software was not going to address that. This was not an autonomous solution. This was a simple communication solution. So it would have competed with something like OnStar. The GM vehicles are equipped with a modem, and so this, basic level of communication has been available from General Motors for a long time. So, so what we ran into in this scenario, so there's actually two different stories going on. There was the story of the rollout of a customer relationship management system, which was pretty straightforward. You did run into some issues, and Anil's team decided to build the system rather than buying the SASE system. That was an example of status quo bias. So, and obviously identity threat, and that's the next slide, but they were very concerned about not having ownership and control of this application. And because the application sits in the cloud and software as a service is actually managed by a separate company, the way that it works is you simply have technology that's made available to you. You log in just like Google Docs, like any of the apps on your phone. And this was very threatening to the IT organization. So Anil's team decided they were going to build it themselves. And as one would expect, an application like SASE was billions of dollars in development, years and years, and is simply refined, year after year. They continue to enhance this tool. So the idea that an IT organization in any company, not just Midwest Automotive, could get anywhere close to the technology capabilities was insane. So I think Jeff understood that, and so he felt that it was important for him to give them a chance. And, as much as he was in a rush to get stuff done, he was a very shrewd businessman. He had been with Midwest for a very long time, and he understood how things worked. He wasn't at the position that he was at by rocking the boat. So it made perfect sense for him to give them a chance, and I'm pretty sure he knew very well that this was never going to happen anyway. So what happened though was Anil's team had a hard time getting this done. And in fact, and it doesn't really say that, but in fact, they had hired this out to another firm, a technology firm, to do the development. They weren't going to do it themselves, but they would own it, once it was done. And the development team hadn't written a a line of code. They hadn't done a single thing. They were not able to get the business needs together in order to begin even writing code. And this is very understandable, right? Because the business organization, this is just like, Henry Ford, if I had asked them what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. That would have been the same situation, right? That the users had no idea what systems were capable of doing, and so they simply would have asked for something that was, better, faster, maybe a mobile interface or something to what they currently had. So it was impossible, even if they had like the best developers in the world, just getting the business requirements together at the business level would have been impossible. So anyway, but the problem was, because at the end of this, term, and it was not weeks, it was actually months, Jeff was really, really angry. And the IT organization actually had to call the sassy rep themselves and kind of fall on their sword that, yeah, we tried and this and that and failed, and now we really need your help. So this was a project, obviously, that I was involved in, because you have to be involved in order to write case studies for the most part. But it was really a fun project. It was a neat opportunity to be part of something. And then it ended up being gigantic. So it rolled out all the way across Midwest, and it was the interaction, the communication, dealer communication system across all of Midwest. So it was a huge, huge deal. The second part of the case study is about an even more complicated project, and that was the the vehicle communication project. And this was something that was the ability to get this off the ground was a lot of serendipity, as we talked about in the earlier modules. Things just kind of happened and came together. Once you knew what you were trying to do, and it wasn't really me who figured out the technology part of it, was the systems engineer that was assigned to Midwest. He knew what we wanted to do, and as he looked out, he was able to see things that he could kind of put together. And the sponsorship from Jack was very key, because there was no way to get at the data that we needed in order to put this demo together without Jack. And Jack was somebody that was from the outside of Midwest. He was hired by a very innovative, he was hired from a very innovative company where technology is at the core of their competency. And he was a very smart guy who didn't do so well at Midwest. He was used to more of a technology culture, and that was not present at Midwest. And he pushed a lot of buttons and had a hard time there. So his help, he was so dedicated to helping Midwest to solve this communication problem, and it was really all about the technology. For people like Jack and for technologists that exist at companies like Apple and Google and Salesforce, etc., it is all about being part of a cool project. And he was all in for that. But that just wasn't the way Midwest did things. So despite his help, despite the fact that there was a demo that showed technology that was literally put together in a weekend. So now a weekend for a technologist like the systems engineer assigned to this is not exactly, a few hours, right? He probably worked round the clock for, for 3 days to put this together. But it was a super short period of time to be able to demo what was demoed. And the whole system was completely live. So the car itself was a Midwest vehicle. It was driven into the engineering center and set up. It was connected up to the system using this wireless dongle. And the communication worked just as we had promised. And the guy that was, Jack's boss, the guy that was in charge, he really did think that we had rigged it. And so he insisted that we change the phone number so that it was his phone number and do it again. So we shut the car off and turned it back on and ran through it again. And he was just amazed. And it wasn't so much that like, hey, we're going to go do this tomorrow. We're going to use this software and do it tomorrow. But what it said was there is technology out there that is fully available that can get us so much closer to where we are today, leapfrog over what we were doing. But obviously, that introduced a number of issues for the Midwest team, right? So the internal vehicle communication systems project, they had spent millions and millions of dollars, and I think it was up to 3 years that they had been doing this development, and we had no idea how much was done, but they were not able to do even a simple demo. So it's possible that there was nothing in place. And even if there was something, it wasn't enough to do any sort of a demo. So they were not anywhere near where they needed to be. And yet they were so fixated on, their identity, their responsibility for this system, that they inaccurately, assessed the risk and the investment, the sunk costs that were already in place to say, we shouldn't move forward with this. So the part that's not in this case study that was present, and again, you have to make a case study readable, right? You can't exactly talk about a global company with all these divisions. This was actually sold and installed in a couple of places, this engineering capability. It wasn't installed in engineering though. So at the end of the day, Mike was able to stop it from going into engineering. But a couple of other business units who had responsibility for the revenue side of that service equation that's articulated in the case, they bought it and they installed it. So whether or not they would be able to get it off the ground, it would have been, more challenging, but it just kind of shows the struggle that Midwest had in moving forward with disruptive technology. So some of the other areas of identity threat, so Anil's team, wanting to build the system themselves, Laura Jackson's IT team that every single year made her go through another justification for the money that they felt should have been invested internally and let them build a system that was homegrown. A lot of this, like to an outsider like me, was literally crazy. The idea that a team of people whose skill level, was questionable at best, but could in no way compete with the level of skills from these outside technology vendors. And the idea that they would want their thumbprint on it, that they would want to develop it themselves versus leveraging something that was already available, put Midwest at a significant disadvantage to other competitors that were leveraging this outside cloud-based technology. So, from a business perspective, when you're thinking about what is best for the company, right? The company employs all these people. They have retirement and pensions and all kinds of responsibility to a whole bunch of people. Isn't it best to do what allows the company to stay competitive in order for the rest of those people to be safe and secure in their jobs? So I have put a discussion board out there for you guys, and I want you to comment on the case itself. So what did you think about it? And most importantly, if you were Jeff, what would you do? Because as employees in a company with a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of layers, a lot of culture, how would you approach this? And what would you do? And I'd like you guys to support or refute one another's opinions. I want to see a lively dialogue out there on how you would respond to this. If you would say, yes, if I were Jeff, I'd move forward. I want to understand how you do that. And if you say, no, I think Mike was right. I want to understand why and what you guys would do differently. And again, this is not a position paper or anything. This can be very casual. I just want to see the dialogue, and I want to see you guys talking to each other about it, and leverage some of the readings from this module. So I look forward to seeing it, and thanks a lot. Bye, guys.